Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to everyone joining us for this Kickstart Your FIA and Applied Knowledge Preparation webinar. My name is Isobel Wroath and I'm the Community Manager here at ACCA, and I'm delighted to be joined by Krutika Adatia, who is our Digital Learning Lead. At ACCA, we have almost 500,000 registered students just like you, working towards a career that will take them to amazing places. Congratulations on taking the first step to joining this growing number, and thank you for registering for this webinar. We pride ourselves in offering our students the best advice, support tips, as well as the latest thinking and research. On top of all that, we're working around the clock to make sure our qualification remains the most relevant professional accountancy qualification in the world. So we have a packed agenda today, so we're going to get straight into it. So the purpose of this webinar is to provide practical guidance and showcase the resources that will help you kickstart your preparation for the applied knowledge and the foundations in accountancy exams. Later in the session, we're going to be sharing our insights into the role of online learning, and we'll be going over how digital resources can support your on-demand exam success.
Thank you for that introduction, Isobel, and great to have so many of you joining us live today. Now, I want to kick off by providing a quick overview of the Foundations in Accountancy or FIA qualification and the link with Applied Knowledge or AK, which is essentially the first 3 exams of the full ACCA qualification. Now, pursuing the FIA is an ideal way to gain an understanding of how businesses and finance works and to open up new career possibilities, both in finance and beyond. Now, if you are working in or interested in a finance-related role, FIA is going to give you that technical knowledge that you need to perform well in your role and to advance your career. It's going to give you that head start towards further finance and accounting qualifications, including the prestigious and globally recognized ACCA qualification. So on this slide, I'm basically going to walk you through the levels of the FIA qualification. So let's start off with the Level 2 diploma in Financial and Management Accounting. So to obtain this diploma, you will need to complete the FA1, which is Recording Financial Transactions, and MA1, which is the Management Information exam. Next up, we've got the Level 3 diploma in Financial and Management Accounting. Now, in order to successfully obtain this diploma, students will need to sit and pass the FA2, Maintaining Financial Records, and the MA2 Managing Costs and Finance exams. Now, please note that you don't need to have completed the Level 2 diploma in order to get the Level 3 diploma. And I know some of you were querying this in the pre-registration question that the students were sort of filling in. You do not need to complete a Level 2 diploma in order to do a Level 3 diploma. You can absolutely start at Level 3 if you feel you already have some sound grounding in accounting and finance. Okay. Finally, we do have the Level 4 diploma in Accounting and Business. This essentially is the first 3 exams of the Applied Knowledge stage for the full ACCA qualification. Now, to obtain this, students do need to sit and complete the Financial Accounting, Management Accounting, and the Business and Technology exam. Okay, so if a student successfully passes the Level 4 diploma, they will be exempt from the Applied Knowledge stage should they wish to complete the full ACCA qualification. Now, I am going to add that in order to obtain these relevant diplomas, students do also need to complete the Foundations in Professionalism course, okay? And this will be made available to you for free once you register as a student, okay? Once you register as a student through your My ACCA account, you'll be able to access the Foundations in Professionalism course, okay? So what do we have next? Well, I qualified as a chartered accountant several years ago, and I remember that as a student, I always got a bit of comfort when I heard of success stories of other students, my friends and colleagues that had passed before me, because knowing that others were able to pass really motivated me. And so what I want to do on this slide is really bring your attention to something that I hope will also motivate you, okay? Now, we get some really strong, reassuring pass rates for all of our foundations and accountancy exams, as evidenced from the table that's popping up on your screen right here. We can see that across all the FIA exams, close to 70% or more of our students will obtain that passing grade. Now, this is fantastic news, especially for those of you that are perhaps holding back from booking an exam, or you're feeling a little bit nervous or unsure about whether you can do it. Hopefully this slide gives you that reassurance, okay, and that you can get comfort from knowing that a lot of our students do pass with some really great results. So, you're probably thinking, right, I do want to study the FIA, where do I start? You might be feeling overwhelmed initially, and you might have questions around what I should be doing and what resources are there to support me. Well, in this segment of the webinar, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to bring your attention to some of the fantastic resources that ACCA have to help support you as you journey through the qualification. So let's kick off with one of the very first things that you should be doing, and that is looking at the ACCA Global website. This really should be the first place that you start at. Okay, and a link to the website has been added to the resource list. You can find lots of resources here for all the exams, including the foundational level as well as the full ACCA qualification. Okay, now for those of you that haven't explored our website, don't worry, because what I'm going to do on this slide is talk you through some of the key things that you should be looking at. Okay, now if you have explored our website, you'll know that for each of the exams, we've got a contents page that is separated out into getting started, and we've got the learning and revision stage. Okay, now one of the first things that we do encourage all our students to do is to really get familiar with the overview of the exam that you're going to be taking. And you can do this by looking at the syllabus documents and any examining team guidance that is available. Okay. Now, the examining team guidance often contains video content, and this really is your first-hand access to members of the examining team. Okay, these are the individuals that write the exam, and so if you don't explore these resources, you're kind of missing a trick here. Okay, so make sure you do explore the information that's there. Within the examining team guidance, often we have things like the examiner reports, and the examiner reports are intended to provide students with a real insight into technique and approach for certain question types. Okay. The reports also include detailed feedback and provide valuable tips in terms of how to maximize your exam success. These are available for all exams, okay? And we'd suggest that you look at least 2 of the latest examiner reports if you can. Within the learning and the revision section, you do have the option to access additional practice tests. We will be talking a little bit more about those later, so I'll leave that till then. And there's also an opportunity to attempt a free specimen exam. Now, it's really, really important that as part of your revision, you try and engage in as much question practice as possible. Okay, and the specimen exams are really great for that. They indicate how that paper is going to be assessed, how it's structured, and the likely style and the range of questions that could be asked for that particular exam. In other words, this is your free access to an interface that replicates the exam environment. You should definitely be exploring those specimen exams, and you should certainly be using these specimen exams to gauge your exam readiness. Now, it's also possible to reattempt the questions within the specimen exams, okay? So if you aren't successful at attempting a particular question first time around, not a problem. You can reattempt this, okay? So definitely check this out. Coming on to something else that you should be considering as a useful resource, and this is our student VLC, or the Student Virtual Learning Centre. Now, if you're new to accounting, you might be thinking that there's going to be lots of number crunching, that you might need to brush up on those numerical skills. Okay, there will be some calculations, but rest assured it's hardly going to be anything as complex as trigonometry or differentiation. As long as you've got those basic mathematical skills, you're going to be absolutely fine. Now, that said, our students can access the Student VLC, which comprises short quizzes, okay? You can use these to brush up on your English and your mathematical skills. They do also provide an opportunity for you to test yourself on knowledge from a prior module before you move on to another, which becomes particularly relevant as you progress through the ACCA qualification. Okay, so definitely start to explore these. Now you can access the student VLC through our website, but as I mentioned, within the resource list, that one-page summary does include a link out to the student VLC as well. Now, for many of our students, we know that video learning is their preferred medium of information consumption. I mean, I know certainly for me, I do love to watch videos. When I want to learn something new, I'll often find myself on YouTube if I'm thinking about a new recipe that I want to cook up in the kitchen, or if I want to teach myself a shortcut for a new application that I might be using. And we know that videos can be great for that. Now, the power of video learning has led us to set up our own Student Study Resources YouTube channel, where we have a host of curated videos and an archive of webinars. Now, we'd strongly encourage you to subscribe to and explore the resources on this channel for yourself. It's really easy to navigate, and we've arranged the videos into playlists that mimic the ACCA exam structure. It's particularly useful for those students that are taking the Level 4 diploma or the Applied Knowledge exams, because we have a video debrief for every single question in the respective specimen exam, which I referenced earlier. Okay, so you can go onto our website, attempt the specimen exam, and if you're looking for additional resources to help you learn why a particular question has a particular answer, you can go to our YouTube channel, and for every single question, there is a detailed video debrief walking you through how to arrive at the correct answer. So definitely worthwhile checking out. Now, these videos will help you build your confidence and uncover a step-by-step process for attempting certain question types. And these videos are being really well received, so we'd encourage you to explore these resources at your own time. Now, what I want to do on the next slide is actually give you a sample video that's on our YouTube channel. It's for management accounting, and I know from the pre-registration questions, some of you were sort of querying, I'd like a little bit more help with management accounting. It seemed to be that there are a lot of students doing the MA exam, so I've selected an MA a video debrief for the MA exam. For those of you that aren't doing management accounting, don't worry. You're not expected to understand the technical content that will appear in the next video. It's really just to give you a bit of an insight as to the types of resources we have on YouTube. Okay, so I'm just going to play that in a second. In this question, you are being asked to calculate the profit using marginal costing. You've been presented with some budgeted information relating to a manufacturing company, as well as detail regarding the normal level of activity and the profit that has been calculated under absorption costing, which amounts to $36,000. You might recall from your studies that the only difference between marginal and absorption costing is the way in which the inventory is valued. Namely, that under absorption costing, inventory unit costs will always include fixed production overheads. Now, there is a formula that you can use to calculate the difference between marginal and absorption costing profit, and this is precisely the formula that we are going to use to help us answer this question. The difference between closing and opening inventory multiplied by the overhead absorption rate will always give us the profit difference between the marginal and absorption costing profit. In this question, you have been provided with the absorption costing profit, so let's actually plug that into our equation below. Whilst we are not told what the closing inventory in units are, we can calculate this as the difference between the production units and the sales units, which have been provided. We can clearly see that if production is 14,000 units and the sales that are budgeted in units is 12,000, it must imply that the closing inventory in units must amount to 2,000 units. In the absence of any other information being provided, we can always assume that the opening inventory is nil. So if we can get this down into our equation below, closing inventory 2,000 units, opening inventory is nil. We now need to calculate the OAR. We can work out the OAR from the information provided. The formula to work out the OAR is always going to be the budgeted overhead divided by the budgeted normal level of activity. Now, this information is provided in the question. The budgeted overheads have been given as $63,000, and the budgeted normal level of activity has been given as 14,000 units. If we plug this into our calculator, we get $4.5. So we now have the OAR. If we multiply out this bit of our equation, what we get is a profit difference between marginal absorption costing, which would amount to $9,000. Now, if we want to calculate the marginal costing profit, knowing that the absorption costing profit is $36,000, we simply work backwards to calculate that the marginal costing profit must be the $36,000 less the $9,000. And what that gives us is $27,000. Having calculated this profit, don't forget to include this within your solutions box provided in the question. Okay, so hopefully that video gives you a little bit of a snippet as to the sorts of video debriefs that we have for all of the applied knowledge and the level 4 diploma specimen exam questions. So definitely explore them. Now I can see that some of you popping questions into the Q&A asking what is marginal costing. Like I say, don't worry if you're not studying for the MA exam. That video was really just to give you a little bit of an insight into the types of video debriefs that we have on our YouTube channel. Okay, so having thought about these specimen exams and obviously the video debriefs that we've just touched on, if you are seeking further exam question practice, these can come in the form of practice tests. Now, as the saying goes, practice does make perfect, and practice really is embedded within the name of this resource. Like the specimen exams, they simulate the real exam environment, allowing you to get familiar with the interface of the exam before you actually take the real exam. Now, practice tests are available to purchase at a marginal cost for all of the FIA and the applied knowledge exams. Now, when you complete a practice test, you will receive a score, but more importantly, you will also receive personalized feedback in the form of a diagram showing you how you've performed across the syllabus areas. Now, you can use this diagram for an at-a-glance view of your strengths and your weaknesses, and this will allow you to plan and shape your revision before you take that live exam. Now, the more questions that you practice and the more familiar that you become with the live exam format, the more likely you are to perform better, okay? And it is widely known from our data insights that those that do use practice tests are more likely to pass the exam, and they tend to score higher as well. Again, information about how you can get hold of those practice tests linked out within the resources list to this webinar. Now, in addition to the resources that we've already mentioned, we do have support available to you in the form of podcasts and an opportunity to join a community of learners through the student learning community. Our aim is to reach students with useful, timely, inspirational and engaging content on a variety of topics. And our podcasts do cover topics ranging from back on track after an exam setback to guidance on preparing for remotely invigilated exams. Very recently, Isobel and I also recorded a podcast all about the applied knowledge exams, and this will be very relevant for those that are also studying the level 4 diploma, so definitely check that out. Okay. We do understand the importance of being able to connect with other individuals and those that are going through the process as you are, so do engage with the student learning community, because this allows you to connect with and share your ideas, thoughts and questions with other students. Okay. We know there is a real benefit in social learning, and hopefully you feel comforted by the connections that you can develop through these channels. Now, up until this point, we've been thinking about, resources and supplementary resources to help you with your studies. But I guess the question you might have is, where is it that I can get access to the detailed technical content to help me with the learning for each exam? And I guess the answer is, it's as much as possible to try and study with an approved learning partner or an approved learning provider. What our data does show is that students that do study with an approved learning partner, they perform much better in the exam. And what we try and do is assess our partners' course delivery so that you can be confident in the quality of the tuition that is on offer. There's always a range of flexible face-to-face and online options, so whatever your circumstances, there'll be an option that's available to suit you. Now, you can learn a lot more about our approved learning partners and providers within the resources link to this webinar, so do explore that. Okay. Now, speaking of approved learning partners, if you are looking for high quality e-learning for FIA or for the applied knowledge exams, then ACCA-X is the product for you. Our courses can be accessed online from anywhere in the world, so you're not restricted by geographical location. ACCA-X offers all of the 7 courses that make up the FIA qualification, okay, and that includes the 3 level 4 diploma courses that also make up applied knowledge for the full ACCA qualification. In fact, the courses for the level 2 and the level 3 diploma are available for free. Yep, you've heard that correctly, absolutely free. So that's FA1, MA1, FA2 and MA2 are available for free. To start learning, it really is as easy as enrolling through our website, which is www.accax.com. Now, if you do want more information on ACCA-X, you can click on the Take Action icon, which I'm just going to spotlight right now. Okay, and if you click on that, you'll get information that links out to our website for ACCA-X. Okay. As we mentioned before, the ACCA qualification is designed as building blocks, and the foundational nature of the courses that are offered by ACCA-X are pivotal to your success in later modules. Now, on that note, I am going to hand over to Isobel, and she'll talk you through ACCA-X in a bit more detail. So over to you, Isobel.
Thank you, Krutika. That was a really useful overview of all the resources available. Now I want to use this section to explain the benefits of online and self-paced learning, specifically with ACCA-X. We understand that the move to online learning comes with its challenges, especially if you're not used to it, but there are lots of advantages once you've adapted to that study style. Now, we're going to share our tips for online learning shortly, but first let's kick off with a closer look at the benefits of ACCA-X. So the first benefit I want to mention is flexibility. And with ACCA-X, you can study where you want, whenever you want, meaning that you can fit it around your studies, around your job, family, and other personal commitments. And because of the courses being self-paced, you can spend as much time as you need getting to grips with the course content. And it's easy to move back and forth through the course, so you can revisit tricky topics and cement those key concepts. And after enrolling onto a course, you have access to the content for 12 months, and that's great because it means that there's no rush to complete it before you're ready. Just moving on to the second benefit, which is accessibility. And ACCA-X does offer an accessible learning experience. As Krutika has already mentioned, the courses for the levels 2 and 3 diploma are available for free. And the 3 courses that support the applied knowledge exams come at $89 each. But we wanted to make you aware of a good deal. At the moment, you can save $20 when you use the code ACCA early. So just head to the ACCA-X website to make the most of that great offer. Each course is broken down into sessions, lessons and units, helping you to effectively plan and keep track of your learning. A course map's available on the course homepage, and that will help you guide yourself through the content, as well as a progress tab that shows your progression using visual tools. But what's really great is the varied mixture of learning methods and interactive content. So on ACCA-X, you can learn through real-life examples, video tutorials, interactive quizzes, and there's also regular knowledge checks throughout to assess your understanding of course topics. And that makes ACCA-X a great option for all students, no matter what their learning style. Now, I just want to focus on another benefit, which is of community. And when you enroll onto ACCA-X, you're joining a global community of learners. And community will play a really vital role in your learning journey. It helps you to build confidence and a deeper understanding of subjects. It can also contribute to positive well-being by creating a sense of shared goals, and that's even if you're learning at home alone. So there are discussion forums at the end of every session, giving ACCA-X learners the opportunity to share ideas and ask questions about the topics that they've just covered. This is a great place to put your knowledge to the test. And after all, the best way to gauge if you've understood a subject is to try and explain it to someone else. Also, on top of this, the ACCA-X team is on hand to assist with any questions you might have as you progress through the course. You'll also receive regular updates on ACCA resources, such as those that Krutika has already highlighted. Now, finally, I just wanted to emphasize one of the most important benefits of the ACCA-X courses. Each course provides plenty of opportunities for question practice. And to reiterate a point that Krutika made earlier, the more you practice, the more likely you are to perform better in the exams. There is a revision section at the end of all 7 courses, including optional tests and a series of brand new exam debrief videos, which carefully demonstrate how to approach and answer exam-style questions. You'll also be required to submit graded exams, which dictate your final course grade, and it's this score that will be used to assess your readiness for the ACCA exams. Finally, when you enroll onto an ACCA-X course, you gain access to the ACCA practice tests for free. And this is such a fantastic benefit. As we've already seen, they play a really important role in exam success. So that's just a very quick overview of the advantages of studying with these courses, but we don't want you to take our word just for it. We have also asked some real learners what they think. So we've captured their feedback, and these are quotes provided by learners from across the world, and asked what they thought was the main benefit of studying with ACCA-X. They had some really, really fantastic insight, which we wanted to share with you today. So, for example, lots of learners appreciate the ability to manage their own time, as seen from this quote from Nicola in the UAE, who really values the flexibility to plan studies around a busy work schedule. For many, location will determine how they study, and Zachariah, this learner, couldn't find a tutor in their location, so the online nature of these courses were perfectly placed to fill the gap. And we've already discussed the benefit of being able to revisit tricky topics, and student Namaya agrees, as you can see from this feedback on the video content. And also in this comment from Jerusha, who was able to apply their learning to real-life scenarios. And finally, just wanted to wrap up with this really lovely comment from Sinjin in Rwanda, who explains that they found everything came easier with ACCA-X. So hopefully this gives you a good snapshot of the different ways ACCA-X can support your learning needs, but let's take a look at exam results. Now, as you can see from this table, students who have studied with ACCA-X and sit the respective exam perform better than the global averages for each relevant exam. And it's really promising to see that as a resource, these courses really do go a long way in supporting exam success. So on that note, we're going to turn our attention to learning a bit more about the courses and their features via a video walkthrough.
At ACCA, we believe that high-quality accountancy tuition should be available to everyone, so we've created ACCA-X. Each course has been designed to offer a wealth of knowledge, practical examples, and flexibility, enabling you to take control of your learning. Once you've enrolled onto one of our courses, you'll be taken to the homepage. This comprises an easy-to-use menu, allowing you to navigate seamlessly through the course. On the right-hand side of your homepage are your course dates and useful handouts that we'd strongly encourage you to explore. Each course includes downloadable summary notes. These are great to use for when you're working offline and are the perfect resource when it comes to revision. The interactive contents page replicates the online course structure and allows for easy navigation, helping you to recap key concepts, topics, and formulas from each lesson within the course. We've also added an on-demand induction webinar where we highlight a course overview and useful tips for online learning, a must-watch before you commence with the detailed content of a course. Other useful handouts include the syllabus documents and a course map which you can use as a guide as you work through the sections and lessons of this course. You should start with the course orientation section. This is packed full of tips and strategies for studying most effectively through the course, as well as signposting relevant tools and resources to support your learning. Our courses are arranged into sections and broken down further into lessons and units, facilitating bite-sized learning that you can revisit as many times as you like. The units within a course include interactive practical examples and knowledge checks so that you can reinforce your learning. Each section includes a designated discussion forum where you can connect with and learn from conversations with fellow learners. Engaging with others on forums is a fantastic way to improve your knowledge and boost motivation. You can also reach out to the ACCA-X team and ask for clarification on a concept, idea, or question you didn't understand, or for general support. Our dedicated team are committed to helping you learn and succeed throughout the course. At the end of each section, you'll have the opportunity to complete graded tests and optional exam questions. As the saying goes, practice makes perfect, and there's ample opportunity for practice throughout the course. These questions are designed to be exam standard, therefore equipping you with the necessary practice to maximize exam success. We understand that practicing questions may initially feel scary, but don't be too disheartened upon getting a question incorrect. Learning is a journey, and the key is to ensure that you learn from the mistakes you make. You can learn from the detailed feedback that is provided for each question, or revisit the technical lesson that covered the concepts examined in that question. Alternatively, you can reach out to us via the discussion forums, or consider reading previous discussion forum threads. You might find that the question you seek clarification on may already have been answered. Our data insights reveal that students who attempt practice questions are more likely to succeed in the exam. Therefore, at the end of each course, we have also added a revision section. This is designed to get you exam ready with an opportunity to practice a full exam standard test. We've added a new lesson comprising exam debrief videos, offering bite-sized tutorials to some of the most challenging questions from the revision practice tests. Use these videos to help build your confidence and expertise in the topic areas covered through the course. Enrollment to the ACCA-X courses also provides you with free access to the ACCA practice tests. These can be exceptionally beneficial for your revision. Designed with the best practices of pedagogy, we have developed award-winning courses which have seen over 200,000 learners enrolled to date. With resounding feedback from our learners citing ACCA-X as an engaging, enjoyable and informative e-learning experience, join our growing community of learners and be part of something bigger.
Well, now we've covered some of the advantages that come from studying with ACCA-X, we're going to provide some tips that will help you make the transition into self-paced online learning. So, as we've already mentioned, online learning is a new experience for some people, and it's obviously very different from the traditional classroom environment. It can be intimidating if you haven't done it before, and it may feel overwhelming being responsible for your own schedule, but we want to share some simple tips for getting the most out of it. So our first tip is concentrating on your environment, thinking about your workspace. One of the main challenges of studying online is finding a workspace that's free from distractions, and you can regularly be interrupted by family, friends, and noisy neighbours and so on. But just choose somewhere you feel at ease, and don't worry if you haven't got access to a desk. Just find somewhere that you have enough space to sit comfortably with a laptop. Obviously, make sure to turn off your phone or put it away from you, and ensure that you have all of your study tools close by so you don't have to keep on getting up and you can maximize your study time. Next tip is about setting goals and setting achievable goals. So you're far more likely to succeed if you have these clear goals in your mind. It's therefore important to understand what your learning objectives are. Try to identify which parts you're going to find most difficult or you tend to avoid, and consider how best to tackle them. And as you progress, check your performance throughout your studies. Next, you need to set yourself a realistic schedule that fits around life and work. And as we've already mentioned, one of the main advantages of online learning is flexibility. But we know that when it comes to managing our own time, you need to find ways of being disciplined about it and following your own schedule. You might find it helps to set a deadline, and there is no better incentive than getting the exam date booked. Once you have a date, work backwards from this and decide how much time you're going to allocate to each task. It's also important to think about your learning style. So some learning techniques are universal, such as asking questions, sharing knowledge, taking notes. Those are all active forms of learning that will solidify your knowledge. But of course, we all learn different ways, and it's important that you test out different techniques that are going to help you get the most out of your studies. Engaging with others, as we've already said, is a fantastic way to improve your knowledge, and it will give you a boost of motivation when your energy is running low. Remember that when you share knowledge with your peers, it's one of the most effective forms of learning, and it really gives you a chance to test your understanding of subjects. So do join a community, whether it be ACCA-X or the ACCA Learning Community. You've already heard about the many brilliant free resources available to you in a variety of different formats, so make sure to make the most of these and build them into your study plans. And it's really important to look after your well-being. Feeling stressed and overworked is obviously going to have a negative impact on your ability to learn, and it can leave you feeling tired and unproductive. So make sure to take regular breaks from the screen and don't take on too much at once. As we said, you can reach out to your community when you need support, and do check out the Wellbeing Hub on the ACCA website for tips on balancing life, work and study. Finally, and again, we've already mentioned this, it's time to book that on-demand exam. Having a date to work towards will give your learning a focus and help keep you motivated throughout your studies. And on that note, I'm going to hand over to Krutika, who's going to share some further study tips that will help you prepare ahead of the day. Over to you, Krutika.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Isobel. Those were some great tips and certainly ones to take on board. Now, before we wrap up, I just wanted to reinforce some of my top tips for studying for the FIA and the Applied Knowledge exams and really bring together some of the key messaging from today's session. I know this is something that a lot of you are querying in the pre-registration questions. You know, how should I approach my studies? What should I be doing? So hopefully this slide really just brings together some of those key tips. Now, firstly, as we touched on earlier, it's really important to get that high-level overview of the exam. Utilize the resources that we've mentioned. Certainly visit the resources on our website, our ACCA website, and use this as a starting point when doing so. Secondly, it's really important that once you start your learning phase, that you really do understand the technical content that you cover. We mentioned studying with an approved learning partner or provider, or even consider enrolling onto our ACCA-X courses. Remember, 4 of the courses that are offered through ACCA-X are offered for free. Okay, so make sure you do take advantage of that. Thirdly, don't underestimate the power of practice, okay? And I've written it here 3 times, practice, practice, practice. We have already cited the mantra of practice makes perfect, and it really is about that practice. So utilize those specimen exams. Great to see that 48% of you that had mentioned in the poll were already using the specimens. That's brilliant. Let's get that to 100% of you using those specimen exams, because it is another great free resource. And potentially consider utilizing those practice tests that we touched on earlier as well. Finally, we have shared a lot of information with you today. As we keep mentioning, it is all reiterated within the resources list, so do check out those resources for yourself. They provide useful links to and access to all the resources that we've mentioned today.
Thanks, Krutika. So we have dedicated some time at the end of this session for a Q&A session. I will get stuck in and kick off with a question for you, Krutika. So we have a question that's come through asking, how difficult is FIA for those who don't have an accounting background?
Oh, that's a good question to start with. Okay, now I suppose in answering this one, let's just think about what FIA stands for. It stands for Foundations in Accountancy. So the emphasis being on the word foundational, okay, or foundations. And so in terms of difficulty, rest assured that you don't need to come to this qualification, the FIA qualification, with any sort of prerequisite or underlying knowledge in the world of accountancy or finance for that matter. You know, thinking about when I used to be a tutor in the classroom teaching my students, I would often get students in the classroom who did a completely different subject or field to accountancy prior to coming to doing an accountancy qualification. I'd get students that were doing history or art or literature, and they would do these exams and they would do well in them. Okay, so you do not need an accounting background to come into the FIA qualification. And the great thing is, and I mentioned this earlier, as they are foundational level, they really just help you to build that solid understanding of accounting and business. And that can be a great stepping stone if you do wish to pursue, you know, the full ACCA qualification later on, if that is your intention. Okay, so initially it may just feel a little bit overwhelming, but it's totally doable. Okay, and like we've mentioned throughout the webinar as well, there are resources to support you. ACCA-X might be a great tool that you can sort of use here if you want to dip into the world of finance or test out the waters, as it were. You could sign up to one of our free courses, you know, maybe enroll onto, let's say, FA1, which is the Introduction to Bookkeeping course. Start to work through some of the content within that particular course, get a feel for what accounting and finance is all about. And if you feel like you are enjoying this course and actually it's making sense, it's not too difficult, well, go ahead and complete the course, go ahead and book your exam. Okay, so a real opportunity there for you to test out the waters with ACCA-X courses there. So hopefully that answers your question there. Now, Isobel, I can see some more questions coming through, and I think this one's a great one that maybe you could help out with, because, you know, especially with the tips that you've given already when it comes to online learning. So a student here is asking, how do I manage my studies whilst working full time?
Yeah, it is a good question, and I know that lots of students are in this position trying to balance work and study. And as we've already mentioned, I think the main thing is to plan and prepare and set realistic goals and create a study plan that fits around your schedule, because it's one of the great things about doing an on-demand exam is that it's on demand. So you're not working towards a date that won't fit in with your schedule. You can make it work for you, and the flexibility can be really key there. I think make use of all of the resources that we've mentioned, and build in, and also maybe ask yourself some questions about your study style. Ask yourself, how and when do you study best? I think that's a key one. I'm a morning person, so I try and do all of my important, all of my important planning and work in early in the morning. Make sure that the people that you know, your loved ones know that you're going to have time that's dedicated to study and that you really need that time in order to switch off from everything else and buckle down. And yeah, like we've said a few times now, have a deadline to work towards, because it's really going to help you build a coherent and robust plan. And it really is the exam date that's going to be the best incentive for you to learn. Right, well, let's move on to another question for you, Krutika. So we have one here that says, is it possible to study for FMA without having studied MA1 and MA2 specifically?
Again, great question. So FMA, which is the Management Accounting or Foundations in Management Accounting for the Level 4 diploma, or essentially the Applied Knowledge, one of the exams at Applied Knowledge stage, you don't, again, need any prerequisite knowledge there. And to this particular question, you know, do I need to have studied MA1 and MA2? The short answer is no, you really don't, okay? You can absolutely go on to studying Management Accounting and FMA without having done MA1 and MA2. However, that said, if you have done MA1 or MA2 or dipped into our free ACCA-X courses, you'll notice that there are some overlaps between the topics within FMA. So for instance, things like absorption and marginal costing, the video we saw earlier, actually, although that was an FMA video or an MA video, those topics, they are explored in MA2 as well. So if you wanted to, you could dip into our free ACCA-X courses for MA2 to get that solid grounding and that base knowledge, which is then just built on within FMA. But you do not need to have completed the exams for MA1 or even the course content for MA1 or MA2 in order to do FMA. So hopefully that answers your question there. Now, looking at what more we're getting in terms of the Q&A inbox, I can see loads of questions coming through, but one that I find a particularly interesting one, because I know as a student I struggled with this. So Isobel, this question is, how can we overcome feeling anxious about the exam? Because I know that's something that I definitely struggled with as a student. It always made me fearful, you know, the day of the exam, the day before the exam. So what do you have in terms of tips around managing that anxiety?
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't experience nerves in the lead up towards an exam? It's very, very common, and we always hear from students who are going through that. And that's the main thing, is to just acknowledge that nerves are very, very normal. They can even be good sometimes. The adrenaline can help, but try not to let them become so negative and destructive that they distract you. In terms of preparing for the exam, you can, like I said, follow the tips on the Wellbeing Hub and make sure that you feel healthy and well as the days in the run up to the exam. You can reach out to your learning community and see what other people are feeling, because, like I said, they'll all be going through the same thing. But in terms of study tips, you've already mentioned them, Krutika. I think feeling prepared and knowing the format of the exam is going to be a really, really key factor in making sure that you go in feeling less anxious than you would have, because preparation is everything. If you know what you're going to experience, then you're going to be naturally feeling more comfortable as you go in. Right, maybe we've got just another one for you, Krutika. One more? Yeah, we'll squeeze it in.
One more. I think we can squeeze in one more. I know we're hitting the 2 o'clock mark, but go on, one more.
Okay, so we've got a question here. What would be an ideal strategy of approach for the last revision session before appearing for an exam? So that's kind of a similar question.
That's a good one.
Should we?
Yeah, that is a similar question to what's already been asked. You know, we have already covered some of the sort of tips in terms of what you should be doing, you know, in the run up to the exam. But just to kind of reiterate, you know, it really is just about practice practicing in the run-up to the exam, making sure you're comfortable with the technical knowledge, and revisiting any knowledge gaps that you might have as you practice the questions as well, because you might uncover that as you're attempting a particular question, you might not have got the right answer. Well, then go back and brush up on that particular topic area that it was that you need essentially filling of the technical content there. Isobel, appreciate that was obviously an overlap with another question. Do you want to do one more before we sort of wrap up?
Well, let me ask it. I've got one more for you, just because that one was very similar.
Brilliant,
so
that's okay, that's all right.
Here's one that I think lots of students ask, and is it possible to take exams for 2 subjects? So, for example, FA1 and MA1.
Okay, no, that's a good question. And I know even in the pre-registration questions, we did have a lot of students sort of querying this. It is absolutely possible to sit, 2 exams simultaneously or study for 2 exams simultaneously. Certainly as a student, I did that. The employer that I was working with at the time would always encourage us to take 2 exams at a time. And whilst that is possible, what I will just say is that when you're deciding your exam calendar, as it were, you need to base this on whether you're going to have the time to study effectively for 2 exams at the same time. Okay, so like I said, I was working at the same time that I was studying, but my employer was encouraging us to do 2, so it was almost like the choice to take 2 exams was something that my employer was kind of making on my behalf. But if you're someone who has family and you have other commitments, it might be that you want to focus on studying for just one particular exam and get that out the way and then focus on another. Okay, but the good thing is with subjects like FA1, which is Intro to Bookkeeping, and MA1, which is the Introduction to Management Accounting, you might find that, again, there are some overlaps. I know within the MA1 syllabus, there is a little segment about bookkeeping, and thinking about debits and credits. And actually, if you're also simultaneously studying for FA1, that can work really nicely. Okay, so again, not the shortest of answers there. It's possible to do both, but you really just have to assess your own situation and the time frame that you have to complete both as well. So I think that brings us to a close, doesn't it, Isobel?
It does. I'm afraid we are going to have to conclude the webinar at this point. We hope that you found it useful, and we hope that you'll check out all of the resources that we've mentioned throughout the session. Remember, anyone who registered for this webinar will be getting an email tomorrow with details of how they can listen to it again. So please feel free to share the details with anyone you think might be interested. Just want to say a very quick thank you to my co-presenter Krutika and the team behind the scenes, and a massive thank you to everyone who's joined us today for your participation. We hope you're excited about your ACCA journey as much as we are to have you on board. So goodbye and good luck.
Good luck. Thank you.